Hi guys, Steve Goodey here. I just wanted to run through some numbers real quickly, and I was trying to figure out in my head how the loan to value ratio restriction relaxing of rules is going to impact the average everyday investor, and I've discovered something really quite interesting. I thought I'd really explain it to you. So I'll get you to come around and have a look here at this piece of paper. So if you've got an owner-occupier who owns a piece of real estate, your own family home, and say it's worth $750,000, you might have a loan on that of, let's use some figures to say $540,000, which basically gives you a 72% loan to value ratio on that piece of real estate, that property. And it also means that you've got equity in the property of $210,000. So this is our equity here. So previously, 70% was your maximum. This property was purchased only a few years ago, so it's still at 72%. Now we can go to 80% on just about all loans. But because this is an owner-occupier property, the banks are now going to let us go to 90% on that, based on a few criteria. So what we could get here is we could find ourselves being able to go to $675,000 of lending, which would give us, in the real world, essentially $135,000 more lending, which is great, fantastic, useful, helpful, can get into the market again. Now, if we have a rental number one over here, and we bought this and it's worth, say, $550,000, we've got a mortgage on this one of $410,000, if you're following me, which gives that rental a loan to value ratio of 74% currently. This rental also has $140,000 equity in it, which is great. The owner-occupier property can now go to the 90%, as we just mentioned. This property can go to 80% because it's an investment property. Now, this is based on information that's come out from Kiwi Bank today. I imagine it's going to be fairly similar for the rest of the Main Street banks to do the same thing. So the new borrowing we can do on the rental property at 80% is now going to be $440,000, which is going to allow us to grab $30,000 more lending. So now on the owner-occupier property, we've got another $135,000, and on the investment property, we've got another $30,000. On rental number two, in the same portfolio, we've got a valuation at $670,000 against lending of $405,000. You know, once again, same calculation. This thing's got a 60% loan to value ratio. So suddenly that's starting to look rather good. And we've got $265,000 worth of equity in this property. And we could, at 80%, because this is a rental again, we could take that to $536,000 new lend, which would give us another $131,000. So essentially what that's going to allow us to do over the life of that portfolio is borrow an equity from this portfolio, an additional $296,000, which is bloody great. I'm stoked. So basically what we've got then is we have a redraw facility of nearly $300,000. Now, the redraw facility means that it can sit there and we can borrow into it. If we're not paying for it unless we're using it. And then you decide, hey, look, I've got access to another $300,000 all of a sudden. What I might do is I might go out and buy another property. So $650,000 purchase price. We're going to buy a property. We're going to put in a deposit there of $130,000. And we're going to go to the bank for the remainder of the funds, which is $520,000. So essentially we're going to take $130,000 out of our redraw facility of $300,000, Our redraw is going to then become, after some costs, a bit of renovation, going to be back down to $150,000, but we own another property. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, what's the downside of this? The downside is that the banks are going to look at it and there's going to be some constraints from the bank. We'll do those in red. We'll call those issues. The issues that they're going to look at is income. They're going to want to have you be able to prove your income, and they're going to want to see that it's quality income. They want to see that it's bulletproof. The other constraint they're going to have is location. They're not going to like Queenstown at the moment. They're not going to like small towns. I'll call that Toke for Tokoroa. They're not going to like Hawera. They're going to like major centres. And banks are going to be able to be fussy again as well. So, you know, that's going to be an issue too. The next thing that you can look at though, if I go back to our first sheet, is these numbers here, these valuations I've used. The own home at 750, the two rentals, one at 550 and one at 670. That's on existing lending as well. So bear in mind too that if you got a new valuation on each one of those and each individual one went up, say 10% only, 10% plus is going to equal about another $130,000 more that you can borrow overall. The next thing is, obviously with these constraints, at some point you're going to have to pay the money back. The bank's not going to sit there and be fine with this. They're going to want this money to come back at some point. And so you've got to wonder, do you borrow the money? You've got to find something that's decent cash flow. You've got to find something that works for you. So here's my thing. Get the camera to come back to me for a second. My issue on this is that I think that most people are going to realize that they can do this. I think that we've got 3% interest rates at the moment, no loan to value ratio constraints. And I think a lot of people are going to look at this and go, I can buy one or two more properties, even with the small amount of equity I've got at the moment. We've definitely gone from an equity market to a cash flow market. So suddenly your income is way more important than how much your house is worth in reality. But I think it's going to create an environment where over the next 12 months, all long-term property investors are going to go out, try and find a deal and try and buy one or two more properties. And I think in reality, that's going to save the New Zealand property market from a majority of the fallout from this COVID problem that the economy's had. So that's just some thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts. Bang a like on this or chuck a comment at the bottom of it, and love to hear from you. Thanks very much.